So what we discussed so far in the where conditions? Where conditions, right? So we discussed equal, less than or greater than or equal, less than or equal, right? And we will talk about this today. So this is nothing but not equal. Okay. And we have some operators like, between, like, in. So I would shall write everything in uppercase. And something like is null and is not null as well. Okay. And after this, if time permits, we'll go with something else like functions. Okay. So again, so I'm using this HR database again so that everyone has it. So let's say what is not equal, right? So it's like whenever if you wanted to filter the rows or data set or the data, right? And you wanted to filter out something that you don't want. Maybe you wanted to see only uh, other than employee ID 107, right? And it's like we have 107 employees in this table, and I wanted to see only 106. I wanted to ignore the last one maybe because he's a manager, might be manager, right? So that is an example, but basically, so not equal nothing but it's simply it's very simple where a not equals to b. So wherever that matches, we get the result. It's very simple to understand. It's nothing complex. So let me give you an example. So if filter something. So I would like to see all the employees, I mean, except the department, which is, 100. I don't want to see any employees which are part of department ID 100. Okay. So it's simple. So we just write where department ID not equals to 100. Yeah, this is it. And so you will not see any employee or details for department ID 100. That's simple. That's it. Okay. And you can also use and conditions and job ID not equal to. So I'm filtering with ADVP. There is an underscore, it's not space. Right? Do you see anything with the job ID ADVP? No, right? Nothing. So like this, you can add any number of conditions with and or. So now, now you see it's a different condition altogether. So what I'm saying, department ID not equals to 100 or job ID not equals to ADVP. So here you see we have this ADVP and department as 90. That is the reason we got this record. because whenever there is like, ADVP falls in a department ID 100, okay, that time, so if you use AND condition, then only it will not be shown in the result. Otherwise, it will be shown. It is a OR condition, nothing but either of the one has to be satisfied, not all. If I use AND, see, doesn't matter. Both. And nothing but all in this case. Okay. Any questions? Guys, any questions?
No, sir.
Right. So, and we have between, see, between will be having a syntax like this. I'll take this as an example. Between 30 and 100. Okay. So what does this mean? So this is nothing but we are filtering out all the employees depends on the department ID. But what I'm saying between 30 and 100, that means it will pick all the records between the range of 30 and 100. So whichever falls within this range, everything we are selecting, including these two, 30 and 100. That is the meaning. So let's say if I select this, so again we have 101. So let's say I'll do one thing. I'll reduce this to 50. Okay. Now you see only 52 records. That too, 30, 50, that's it, and 40. 30, 40, 50. And this is a lower bound and this is upper bound. And if you say this is 50 and this is 30, it won't work. Okay. So you should follow that upper bound. I mean, lower bound will come first and then upper bound, and they should be and. If I say R, you had a question, right? How it works? See, missing keyword. So when we use between, it should be and always. We should not be using or. So this is a proper syntax, and mandatorily we need to use and only between the range. So when I say between 30 and 50, so the range including 30 and 50 as well. Okay. And so this can be used between dates as well, and names or any character output as well. So we can use it. So let's say we'll see with an example. So this is for between, right? So now, are you able to understand why we are using all this? Right? So if you still have that question, so we are trying to filter out the records when we select anything from table, data from table. Okay. So why we need to filter? So anyhow, right? So when we are selecting something, so the data that we are fetching from the table will be doing some operations. So as the data size grows, and you will need more time to process the data. So that is a reason. So anywhere, so if you are dealing with the data, so anytime, anywhere, any process, filter the data at the earliest. So in the query itself, we filter the data so that we will get the records that we wanted. If you select everything, let's say this table is having just 1 million or 2 million records, and it will be fetching all those records and we are processing. But in that the 10 millions or 1 million or 2 millions, right? So we only need 100 records. So in that case, we'll be unnecessarily using all the system resources like memory, processor, compute, and everything, right? So that is the reason. Always be cautious and filter out the records as early as possible. Okay. So that is the reason. So these are the different mechanisms that we can filter the data, the tables. So we discussed something yesterday using where class, and we are discussing some operators today, like we just discussed between. This is something like it will give us a range. So within that range, we'll be selecting everything. Only we are fetching the records from that range. Okay. And again, so we discussed an example with the numbers now. So we'll discuss this with date. Okay. So hire date. So let me do one thing. I'll just select everything. So we have different years as well. So I'll do one thing. I'll like to select from we used this yesterday, right? To print the date format. Okay. Now this is sorted. So what I'll do, I'll just use two, 1, 2, 31, 12, and so let's say 2004. Now see, the hire date now is between 2001 and 2004. So this is where, so we can also filter on the dates, or if you use any character, that will be based on the ASCII. Okay. So we'll not really know, right? I mean, what is the ASCII numbers, but still we can do that. Okay. So this is an example for dates. So we can simply use between lower and upper bounds like this. Okay. And let's say we'll try with job ID. So if I sort this, I'll select this. See this, wherever we use these conditions, right? What are the characters that we are enclosing in single quotes? It's case sensitive, and you should be careful of it. I'll select this same and okay. And I'm selecting all. See, it doesn't work. It worked, but that depends. So what is the ASCII range for this? Okay, that works, but this is not a good way to use between for the character based values. Okay, we really not know, right? So because we know the records, I mean, whatever the records that we have, only 107 records in this table, and it's very easy for us to calculate everything if you know the details. But if you go into any production database, you'll be having multiple unknown things into the tables. So you really not know. So what will be the different values, right? So it's really not needed. Okay. But again, so if I wanted to filter on this kind of data, how can I do that? On text, right? So there is a way again. So we can use in operator. Okay. So let's say I wanted to filter job ID. Okay. Which is this, these two. So this nothing but it will print everything which matches with job ID, which is in account or SMA. Both. It will give us a both. Right? We have these records for these. So if there are no records for this, so it doesn't give any error. Instead, if there is a matching for the other ones, it will give us a result. So let's say I'm doing AD. See, did we get this? No, right? So it doesn't give you any error if the value does not exist in the table, but if there is a result, you can get. If there is not, so you don't get. You will get an empty result set. Okay, and this can be used. This in operator, right? This can be used with number, states, and everything. Let's say I'll give you an example. Department ID in 30, 50, 80. I wanted to filter these many. See, you will be saying only these 50. See everything, then 80. You see, right? It's either 30, 50, or 80. That's it. And this is like the filter range will be within this right, the parameter that we passed. It will not go beyond this. Whatever that we mentioned in class, and we can use it. And the maximum number of parameter that we can supply is 1000. Okay. And so it's not a good practice to use 1000 or 100 or something. There is another way we can discuss during the subqueries and correlated queries. Okay. Any questions on this so far? I mean, we discussed between and in. So any questions on this too? Okay, great. So again, so the next one is like again. So in some cases, right? So maybe you are like, so you wanted to print everything, maybe a first name that starts with AL, right? So we have Alana, Alberto, Alexander, Alexis, Alan, Alice, right? We have these many names, but in some cases, right, maybe we wanted to search for something that starts with some characters or ends with some character, right? So in that case, we can use this like operator. So like operator is always works with character based varchar. Okay. Let us see an example. So it is, see, these are all very simple to use. Okay, simple in between, like if you try to practice at least once or twice, so you can remember it easily. Okay, these are, see, most of the operators that we are using this like in, right? So this will be important when you are writing code in a production base, but interview practice wise, so it's very less, it's like less probably they ask the questions basically between like in, but you should know all this. This will be very helpful when you are writing code in the productions. I mean, when you are really working, right? It's very important to filter the data, how to filter, and what are the different options that we have, right? In that way. All right. So now, like operator. So again, any questions? I mean, in the in operator. And one more thing, this in operator also called as membership operators. So why it is called membership? So the query result will be checking whether these are part of the table or not. That's the reason it's called membership operator as well. Okay, right. So then we'll go on to like operator. So like nothing but the name itself is saying so like. So I wanted to print the result like this value that way. Okay. So let's see an example. Right. Now, as I said, first name like followed by we'll be using the condition like this. I said I wanted to print something like this is case sensitive again. So I already told you, and then followed by %L symbol. %L symbol nothing but it's nothing but 0 or more occurrences after this. Let's say it will print only those that starts with AL, right? So let's say I wanted to print only starts with A. So there is no starts with in SQL. So that's the reason this is a way we can use like this first name like starts with A followed by any number of characters, any number of nothing but 0 or more characters, but it should start with A. And again, if I say it should start with R, right? See, these are two values. Are you getting it? Again, so one more example I'll give. I'll select everything first. So one more thing I wanted to use is, so I would like to print everything. So whichever the first name that has second letter as E. Okay, we have something, maybe there are more. I can see Nina, Lex, and then yeah, let's see. So exactly how many we have, right? So we have two symbols that we use. So if I say underscore followed by E, see, we have everything that has second letter as E. So basically we use two operators here. One is % symbol and the other one is underscore. So % symbol nothing but 0 or more characters. Okay. And this is underscore nothing but so one character. Okay. I'm putting them in a comments. So that's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying, there will be any one character. So it starts with anything, but I want the second letter must be E. So if I wanted to add one more E, so that's fine. So if let's see, there are any, yeah, we have Nina. So which is having, so from the second letter, so we have two E's there. So this is the way we use this like operator. And let's see if we can use this for date or number. So what I'll do, employee ID, like one. Yes, we can use, but how it's possible? This is a number and the like nothing but a character that we are giving. So this is called implicit conversion typecasting. Okay. So you can, practice with a date and let me know if that's working or not. Okay. So these are very simple. So we discussed between, in, like, three operators, right? And we will discuss is null and is not null. So any questions before moving on to the truth of them? Do you have any questions on between, in, like operators? Okay, so I'll take that as no questions. We'll move on to how to filter null values. See, let me try one thing. So I'll take commission percent, right? Commission percent. So this is a column. So most of the values are null here. So but right, and not equals to null. I would say this. See, there are values with nulls, and there are values without null, right? So we have these some percent values, right? But when I select this, it's not giving anything, right? So as we discussed sometime in the previous class, nulls cannot be compared. We cannot compare this. So that is the reason it's by default giving us no result. But if you wanted to filter only, right, only null records you want, we can use is null. So this will give us all the values which are having nulls. Right? Do you see any value in this one? No, right? Right. So this is a way we will handle null and not null values. And if I say not null, will give us everything that has some at least one non-null values basically, right? So this is the way we handle null values. So we cannot compare with equal, less than, greater than something. So if we wanted to handle null values to filter it, so we can use is null or is not null, both of them. That's it. Very simple to use. Just remember, if it is null, use null. If we wanted to filter not null values, we use is not null clause. That's it. Any questions? So if you don't have any questions, so we will move on to the next topic. I mean, altogether it's a completely new topic for you now, which is functions in SQL. Guys, do you have any questions? Nobody's talking.
I don't have any.
So anyhow, so we discussed 4 different options. I mean, I think 5 we discussed. Between, so it is simply to filter range of values, including lower and upper bounds. Okay, like, so it's like a pattern matching. Okay, and in nothing but, so it's like in if else conditions, right? We write basically. So if this exists, that exists. So for that one, we'll use case, and in nothing but if you wanted to filter multiple values, okay, that we use multiple parameters can be filtered. And this is filter values which are having nulls, and this one non-nulls. Okay, see, these are very simple. Practice at least once, you can remember it very easily. Okay, all right. Now functions, right? Anyone know what is a function? You must know functions, right? Maybe if you are from computer science background, most of you are, right? You must have learned C, C++, Java or something, right? So let me know. So what is a function? Guys, come on. No one knows function? Simple. So it's a block of code written to perform a task. Right? So maybe, function is nothing but methods in Java. So you must have created override, overload functions, right? So similar concept here, but It is specific to SQL, so we just use functions. The same concept. So functions will be accepting arguments and returning us values. Accepts parameters or arguments. Okay. And returns output. And then, so what is the feature? I mean, what are the features of this function? So why do we use functions? What is the main purpose of the functions? So the feature or advantage is, right, we write once, use many times. It's nothing but reusability. All right. So any function that we created, why we use that? So we will use every time. So if that matches result, will give us. So we can also create functions in SQL, but it's not in our scope. That will be covered if you are wanted to learn PLSQL. So you can write your own functions, user-defined functions. But here in this one functions concept, we will be using all predefined functions. Will be covering most of them. Predefined functions. Okay. So anyhow, anyone knows any simple functions that maybe any other program language or in SQL? Anyone? You must have used. I mean, that's for sure. Okay, so maybe what are the different purposes that we can use these functions, right? So the purpose would be like this. I mean, so maybe we wanted to manipulate data and change the data format or date formats. Okay, and uh, type conversion or typecasting. Typecasting nothing but changing from one type to other type. So maybe if I wanted to convert date into a string or varchar, right? We can do it. To-char function we can use. So anyhow, so there are more. So depends on the use depends on use case. So we can use any function that we want. Okay. So again, in Oracle or SQL, so not specific to SQL only. So anyway, so in SQL, right? So functions can be divided into two types. Two types. Okay. And one is single row function and multi-row functions. Okay, so maybe I'll be sharing all this material soon. I'm working on to prepare that, but I'll be sharing this one as well with you to temporarily read all the things. Okay. Anyhow, so functions, we can divide them into two types, single row function and multiple row function. So what's the difference? So for single row function, so it will take one row, input is one row and output is one row. Nothing but for each row, you'll be getting one output. So there are 10 rows, you'll see 10 outputs. Okay. And then we have multi-row functions. This is like the input is group of rows, group or multiple rows, but only one output. Nothing but aggregate functions like max, min, sum, count. These are all comes into multi-row functions. Example like min, max, sum, count are there are many. other things. Okay. And for singular functions, right? Singular function. Again, we can divide them into multiple types. So because we have different data types, right? Like maybe strings, nothing but character values, dates, numbers, and changing the date formats, or I mean data format, like data types, typecasting, and some other general functions maybe. So that all comes into row functions. Let's say a number based, and character based, and date formats, and typecasting, and some other general functions. So we can divide the single row functions again into the following. I'll say this is one more type. So let's say 5 different types again: number based, character based, date, and typecasting and general functions. Okay. Okay. So before, right, before we start working on this number based or other different types, let's understand. So what exactly singular functions and how do they work, right? So we just discussed, right? So I'll take an example of uh, round function. Okay. So this acts differently on the data type that we used. Okay. So let's say I'm using round of value 145 something point comma 2. So for example, this is a function that depend based on number. Okay. What I'm saying now, I'm having this value, and let's say I'll select from DL. See, it is rounding of these decimal points into 2 digits, right? So it is having 876, and it is rounded to the nearest round value, that is double 8, right? So what it is accepting here? So it is accepting a constant. Okay. And this may be any column also, right? Column or expression as well. Parameters, the arguments can be anything. So if I use 2, that is also fine. It will give us a result. This is an expression now. When I added this multiplication, this becomes an expression, right? So what I mean to say is the arguments can be anything like expressions, or it must be a column, or it must be a constant. Okay. And if there are any variables, because if you use PLSQL functions, you can also use variables as well. But I wanted to tell you because we'll not be discussing PL/SQL. Okay. So again, so how it works? How it works? See, I have this. This is only one value. It gives us one result. Let's say I'll take an example of this. Right. So where we have some decimal here. Okay, so what I'll do is select permission path, and then what I'm using is, and I'm rounding it to 1. Now see, is not null. All right, you see, what I said. So single row functions. So it will take one row and give us one row as output. This is our input, this is output. So this is a reason these are called single row functions. Nothing but for each row, it will take the value, perform the action, then give us a result. Okay. So if there are 100 rows that you are giving as input, so you can get 100 values like this. Now you see, for every input, we have output. Okay. This is single row functions. So if I say select, sum of now this is multi-row function. You will only get one output, but the sum of commission packed, right? This is having almost 107 records. Few of them are null values, but even though there are at least more than 10 values that are having some value, and you are only getting one value, right? This is a multi-row functions. Multi-row function, but it will take any number of records, but it will give us only one record as output or one value as output. I hope you understood, right? What I'm saying. So this one, so we have for each record, we'll be getting one output. That is for single row functions. For multi-row functions, right? It will take or accept multiple rows and give us only single value. That is the main one, the main difference basically. And again, these functions can be nested. So functions can be nested. Functions can be nested. What does it mean? Nested functions. Anyone? Used in select or where, order by class as well. So we can use the functions in all these things. So like they can be nested, select and where and order. We can use on all these, places, different syntaxes. Okay. So, so I'll be discussing one for each type, for numbers and date, conversion, some other functions, right? We'll give you an example, but you need to practice. So how to use them in different way, actually using in a select class, in a where class, in order by class, some expressions, in a joins, right? So we'll be discussing that in the future classes. So that way you'll get more idea on how these functions will work, and it will be very helpful for you when you are working, even for interviews. Any questions now? So one result per row. They can be nested. See, they can be nested means, I have this. I can use another function here. So round, I have 0.6, comma round to 0, right? This will work. The same result. 0.6, comma 0, nothing but it will be rounding off to 1. I don't want to use any decimal points, right? That is the meaning of this. What I'm using, I have this round function, and within the round function, I'm using the round again. This is called nested function, nothing but using functions within functions. That is a nested way. So that is allowed. So you can use that. Again, what if I don't use this? Still, it's working. But you check what is the output of this. Okay. All right. Any questions on this? Single row functions and multiple row functions. We discussed only a theory part. Come on, guys. No questions. That's great. And so we will start with character-based functions. Okay. So can anyone know so what we can do on the characters? So we have functions like upper, lower, init cap. Okay. And then we have this is case manipulation or yeah, case manipulation. And then we have data manipulation. These are very interesting, concat. See this concat one we discussed when we are using with double pipe symbol, right? The first or second class itself. So concat nothing but you can combine multiple columns basically. Concat, then substring, length of the function, and int string, L pad or right pad, I mean left or right padding. We will discuss all this. Trim, replace. Okay, so these are all the different data manipulation functions. Okay, so we will discuss first the upper lower init cap. Let's say so I have the first name, right? Select star from employees. See, because I'm using every time this select star from employees, because this only having under record, that is fine, but never use this kind of escapes. Don't use star every time. So I have this, right? I mean, first name, last name, email. So now I'll do one thing. Upper of first name. Okay. Uppercase. And now lower of first name, that is in a lowercase. And now init cap so for this I'll do one thing. Init cap of first name and what I'm doing. Come on, can anyone tell me what I'm trying to do? What does this mean? Okay, so let me execute this. And I will also use first name, last name. See. Now this is the actual value, that is ln, and this is a m. So both are in a init cap actually. Now when I use this upper, right, you see the values are converted to uppercase. Similarly, when I use lower, they are converted to ln, lowercase. Now this is, so we have first and last name both are having init cap. So now what I'll do is I'll use this. Simply I can use, we can also use nested functions, right? We already discussed. Now, even though, so I used upper and lower completely, it's these first name will be completely this and this. Now this init cap nothing but whenever each word will be starts with a uppercase character. It's nothing but camel case basically. This is nothing but camel case. Camel case means, in Java, right? Maybe most of you know Java, right? The class names, right? Class names. This is an example of a class name. So every new word, right, that starts with uppercase letter. So that is a meaning. Init cap nothing but that is a camel case indirectly. Any question on this? The simple example. Uppercase, lowercase. And again, we can also calculate length. I'll take all this. I can use a comma here and use length of this whole as I'll use length. So now what is the length here? Number of characters in that value, in that column or in that expression. You see, this is ln and why it is different now. First name, last name, uppercase. First name, okay. I used anyhow, that is correct, only no issues. I wanted to concatenate both first name and last name. All right, see, ln able, right? So the length, nothing but number of characters in that string or in that expression or in that value or column. Very simple. This is just that's it. I told you, so we can use nested functions. We use multiple nested functions here. Init cap, upper, lower, and everything within length again. So this length, this is a parameter for this. And again, so that this is, the levels. First we have init cap, then upper, then lower, right? First, the innermost functions will be executed first, then it will start executing one after the other, come out to the outer ones. First, these two will be executed because they are two on the same level, basically, upper and lower, right? From left to right, they will be executed first, and then the init cap will be executed, then the length. So that is the way they will be executed. The innermost, then the next outer, next outer, next outer, that way. Okay. This is the way these will be executed. And so you can play with it. Maybe you all have SQL installed in your systems. Play with it and practice as much as you can. Spend some time. So these are very easy to remember, easy to practice. And as we go, right, we'll be having the complexity of these queries will increase. And you should remember all this. These are all will be useful when we discuss something in the future classes. Any questions on today's class? Any question? All of you are not talking actually. Only Girish is responding, and I don't know others.